Okay, here we are. I'm just getting us going here. 4 o'clock on Friday. Hello, everybody. I'm Robin Golinski and Dr. Dennis Becker, and this is our Outwitting the Manipulator regular live stream podcast. Or as Dennis, should I say, it's Dennis the Menace and Robin Redbreast coming to you today.
Sometimes it's both of those things. That's right. It
Because
depends.
today is all about name calling, and I know those
That's
are
right.
names we've both been called.
Yeah.
I remember that junior high school, Robin Redbreast. And I said, don't call me that. And they said, well, prove it.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no. Well,
Teenage.
you don't really want to know. You don't really want to know what mine was. Dennis the Menace was good. That's for my first name. You don't know what. You don't want to know the last name connection.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
What is it?
Let your. Oh, I'm not going to say it. Let your imagination
Oh,
run.
Dennis
Oh yeah.
Pecker,
Yeah. Yeah.
Becker. Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying it. Dennis the Menace was enough. I wound up getting T-shirts and all kinds of things that said Dennis the Menace on it, but the other
Well,
part, not so much.
Dennis the Menace and Robin Redbreast, as name calling goes, are pretty
Yeah,
innocuous. They're not so harmful, right?
yeah,
What we want to talk about is the strategic, manipulative use of name calling today, both professionally and personally, and both overtly and covertly, and what we recommend how you handle it, because this is a very powerful manipulative tactic that actually can directly immediately affect how you feel about yourself.
it's very
And
common too. It's one of the common ones.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, we did that on the right. Almost all kids end up having nicknames.
Yeah,
Nicknames are a little different than name calling, but
yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
the nickname can be not so nice, right?
yeah,
Right,
yeah,
Dennis?
yeah, yeah. That's right. I mean, so nicknames I think are meant in a different way. They have a different intent. If you're a fast runner, they call you Speedy or something like that. I mean,
Yes.
it's not the same as the name calling that we're talking about relative to manipulation. But let's face it, it's there, but it is different, folks. We want you to know that. We know that.
It can be a form of affection,
Yeah,
and it can make you feel, well, people know you by your nickname, or in your inner circle.
yeah, yeah,
It can be a nice thing.
yeah,
And siblings, often with siblings, we had, my brother Richie was Fitchy and Renee was Nay, and
yeah.
we all had nicknames.
Sure,
Um,
sure. That's
but
different. That's different than what we're talking about today, because we're referring, of course, as we do always, to something related to the manipulative tactics that we hear used against people. And in the book, we identified 24, was it 24 or 27? I forget. 20,
24.
24 of the most commonly used tactics, one of which is name calling, because it's very common. So that's what we're talking about today. It's not so much about the other sort of nickname kind of things. Let's make a difference.
And I want to stretch this a little bit, given where we are at this moment in time in our cultural evolution, and
Hmm.
stretch it to labels, because labels
Hmm.
are a form of name calling. For instance,
Yeah.
the term Karen,
Hmm.
which used to be, I knew a lot of nice Karens growing up.
Yeah, me too.
Somehow the name Karen became
Yeah.
pejorative
Yeah.
and symbolize a white entitled lady, I guess, who
Yeah.
has opinions or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Bad for the lady's name Karen, but
Imagine being named that now these days. Wonder how many kids, just out of curiosity, I don't know any of the research on this, but how many parents these days are in the last year or two or whatever are naming their child Karen? I wonder. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
but I got called to Karen at a comedy show. So
Oh.
I've been a stand-up comedian in the past, and I've also produced comedy shows as a producer, and I've also been an MC. And Dennis,
Mhm.
I don't know if you remember, but we were at a show that was in an intimate setting, except there was a bar in the corner, and the there was a couple of drunk people in the corner who were completely disturbing the show.
Oh,
Losing
heckling.
the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I couldn't stand it. It really bugged
Mm.
me. So I got up from my seat and went over to them and told them to be quiet. I came back, and then
Oh,
that comic who was trying to get on America's Got Talent, the guy from the Bronx or something, saw me do that. So he said, and then Karen got up to tell the drunk people to be quiet. And
oh,
I had to
oh.
laugh. It was so, I thought it was funny. I thought it was
Yeah,
really
but you were doing him a favor, and he
I
called you.
know.
Oh, what the heck?
I was setting him up to succeed because the
Yeah,
guys were so distracting. And
yeah.
everybody kept whipping their heads around, but nobody said a word to them. It always makes me crazy. And if you've been listening to our podcast a while, I'm sure this isn't a stretch for your imagination. I'm not somebody who sits there and watches things happen without
Mm-hmm.
saying anything. So
Mm-hmm.
they called me a Karen, and I felt conflicting feelings. I laughed at the joke because I was like,
Yeah,
that's a good one. Like he's trying
yeah,
to use what's happening around him in the
yeah,
moment, which
yeah.
is a sharp thing to do as a comic. And then I
Sure.
thought, F you,
Yeah,
I'm not Karen. I'm
yeah.
I'm I'm a Karen with an emphasis on the care, okay?
Oh, there you go.
Because I'm caring a little too much about your
Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah. Oh my God. That's
I'm
new one on
caring.
me. I hadn't heard it used that way. I like it. I think I like it.
Yeah, but then he also slammed a good friend of mine, and I forgot what he said. He called her Mary Tyler Moore or something, and she was up
Oh.
before him. And it was just he wasn't that good. Anyway, but
Yeah, so
name
sometimes that name, sometimes at times name calling, I don't know, it's kind of in jest, so to speak, and it may even feel good sometimes, maybe complimentary at sometimes. Uh, and those are the kind of things that we're all sort of tolerant of, and we kind of understand. Like, I would have thought that comic understood that you were trying to help him, and he would have called you out, but he used the moment like it's a comic technique. I get it. I get it. But all
well,
name calling is not necessarily a bad thing. We're concerned about the name calling that your manipulator uses, period. Let's stop right there. Why they use it, we'll talk about, but
so
that's the kind of name calling we mean.
we don't talk about politics on this show, but I will mention Trump because he was very effective. And I want to say it was like name calling, labeling, but
Mm.
and I can't remember what did he say? Lion Ted? Was it Lion Ted? I don't know.
I can't keep track.
He had a lot of
Yeah.
nicknames. I mean, let's just say like Lazy Eyed Joe or Tony Baloney or something.
Horse face.
But they
He called the one
horse
woman horse face.
When you
Oh,
tie it in with the person's name, like Lion Ted, Lazy Eye Joe,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Fatty Patty,
yeah, 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 yeah,
that sticks more. That
yeah,
can really take on a life of its own. And the
sure.
hard thing is that even people who think it's wrong and don't agree with it might snicker
Yeah,
because it's kind of funny. And it's so
yeah,
childish too that you might
yeah.
find the inner child in you just starting to laugh at the situation, which adds more harm. But
Hmm.
this is used with another technique often, which is public humiliation. So the
Of
name calling
course.
can be done in private or could be done publicly. Let's talk a little
Hmm.
bit about the office, Dennis, how this might be used in an office setting, because it's going to be more covert, but it can
Hmm.
dramatically affect somebody's morale, their performance, their motivation.
Yeah, actually, it's true in a personal setting or a professional setting, like an office, as Robin mentioned. And when it's done within the professional setting, we'll call it that for the moment, because we mean business. It could be any business environment, but for the professional setting, it can be quite detrimental, even if it's used in jest. Even if you're trying to be lighthearted or something, you have to be very careful about the words, the name you attach to an individual or to their behavior, because first of all, it can stick and that can become problematic. Secondly, it can be overheard by others who maybe don't even know that person, and it begins to spread through the company because they heard it once. It's something that oftentimes will happen in business as it does in personal, because the perpetrator, the name caller, can't control it. They have some malice aforethought. They have something against that person. They don't like them in some reason. And so they'll do it. So it can happen either in jest or because they're really trying to hurt somebody or harm them.
In the office, it can often be used to undermine someone in a competitive situation. So let's say you have a person at the office who's in before everybody else, leaves after everybody else, seriously work hard, overachiever, and maybe new to the group, new to the team. And you got this guy who feels like you're making him or her look bad.
Even by calling them, this is a fairly common, and it sounds innocuous, but think about it for a second. When you call someone who's trying to fit in and they're trying to make their way and they're trying to be part of the team and so forth, and what do we call them? Newbies.
Right. That
to
is
set you apart from our other, we're not newbies.
Rookies, newbies. But
Yeah.
in this case, they might actually take a strength that you have as a punctual, always reliable person, and they may mock you for it by applying a pejorative name to you, like brown noser.
Yeah.
What's another, like
apple polisher,
something like that, where they just oh well, I'm not surprised you're the first one here, because you're such a little good doobie.
A little doobie.
So now they're actually trying to package and market you and frame you for others.
Yeah.
So there's so many ways this can happen.
It really is interesting, isn't it, Robin, that you and I are focused on those nefarious uses of the tactics that manipulators have. And they're obvious, and we deal with them all the time. But there are these other examples that we're giving right now that sort of seem friendly, even, or they seem like, it's just joking around. They're not they may not intend it to be nefarious. They're not truly manipulators, but by saying those things, it becomes a feeling of manipulation. It becomes a feeling of something bad, something negative. So even when it's sort of friendly name calling, it can have a deleterious and nefarious effect.
I've had people in a professional setting say, "Oh, you're such a mom."
Oh my goodness. Yeah, really.
Right? I like being a mom and I'm happy to be a mom, but I'm not trying to be a mom when I'm in a professional setting. So it's a very subtle way of saying it's almost in the column of a backhanded compliment in a way, right? Because you can't really say, I don't really appreciate you calling me a mom in front of our team or something.
Yeah. And certainly that is a way of those who are, let's put a new word in, those who are jealous of you and the success and the ease with which you're fitting in and so forth. They might want to say something about you. Oh, well, you're bringing a mom now. You're a really good mom now, indicating that that's something that's primary in your mind, not your work, not your professionalism, not the task that you have, but being a mom. And so that becomes a form of name calling. And, it's not always meant in a mean way. Sometimes it's congratulatory. Well, thank goodness we have you. You brought your mom skills today, because sometimes they mean it in a nice way, but you have to be very careful.
Look at the context very carefully there. In a professional setting, I'm not sure talking about motherhood is complimentary. I think it's diminishing when, just because of the whole situation with women trying to do it all and be it all. But before we go down, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole on that. What I thought of as you were speaking, Dennis, is that how important it is for whatever it is, if it's a label, if it's a euphemism, if it's a very gray area, like, oh, you're such a good doobie, or, and you're not quite sure, you need to take note right away of the person who's saying it, the context in which they're saying it. And we always tell you to write it down, because if you notice a pattern, because it's harder to discern and identify this in a professional setting, because you're going to give people the benefit of the doubt, and these are people you have to work with, but you want to have your eyes wide open. I've coached a number of people who've had this type of situation in the office, where they're like, am I being over? This is my favorite, right? You know what I'm going to say, don't you, Dennis? Am I being too sensitive?
Oh, yeah.
Where we blame ourselves.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying blame everyone else and don't blame yourself. I'm saying
Yeah.
Do the research, do the analysis, use your curiosity, make a note of it because
Mhm.
it's the pattern you want to see when it's gray like that. And
Mhm.
then if you do identify the pattern, now you know that person is not, I'm hitting the T on that word, not your ally. They are
Mhm.
not your ally. They are what I would call a saboteur or an underminer.
Saboteur.
They might just be an
Yeah.
underminer and then
Yeah.
they evolve into a saboteur.
Yeah.
But you need to have your eyes wide open for this type of situation.
Mhm. Yeah, no question. And uh, I know when you hear us talk about name calling, folks, you're thinking about those really nasty things. We're talking about sort of the subtleties and the accidental and the friendly sort of things, hear it by mistake sort of
Well,
things. But I know you're thinking about the actual name calling when somebody calls you a name that is nasty or unpleasant or unfriendly or unkind. And I mean, you all know we don't want to use that kind of language on the show here, but you know what kind of language we're
no,
talking
I'd
about.
be happy to if you'd like me to.
No, no, we don't have to use it. Yeah, I know you
You
would.
get
No, we don't have
nervous
to.
when I do that. But
Yeah,
here's the thing, when name calling is so childish, right? It's
yeah.
really, really childish. It shows a real lack of imagination, a lack of evolution, an insecurity. It reveals all of that. But like Dennis said, when it gets to that level of contempt, I mean, that's what when somebody's
Mhm.
calling you, I won't use cuss words, but nag, you're such a nag.
Yeah,
You're a
yeah,
wench. All you do is,
yeah.
when they say stuff like that to you, they're demonstrating contempt.
Mhm.
And what do we
Yeah.
know about contempt, Dennis?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. When my kids were little and when we were working on profanity and language and don't say that at the table and why did you call her that and that sort of thing, I had one thing that I did with my kids that worked very well from the time they did what I'm about to share with you folks, from the time they began doing that to the time they got up and grew and be adults. I mean, now they probably swear like sailors when I'm not around. I don't know, but in the early days when they were learning it and in polite society, they learned because the technique that I used to correct that was, you may want to write this down, folks. There's a technique. They would come to the dinner table, let's say, or I'd hear them saying something, and I bring it up, and I say, look, when you talk like that, I would explain, as Robin just said, it's immature, it's childish, and so forth. So to help you remember that, I want you to write the following sentence 100 times. Go to your room, don't come out until you write it 100 times. This is the sentence I had them write. Profanity is an effort of a feeble mind to express itself forcibly. Okay? Profanity is the effort of a feeble mind to express itself forcibly. That's what you were just talking about, Robin. That's an actual sentence I would have my kids write. And I made that sentence up so that it automatically would not fit on one line. It's long enough. You had it. And I
So
made them write it 100 times before they can come back to the table or come out of the room or whatever it was. They learned it. To this day, my adult children can probably say that sentence to you. But the point is that profanity and name calling does come from a place in that individual that is insecure, that is not terribly sophisticated with language, or is so angry that they can't control their own mind thought and they
or
blurt out whatever the
more
easy things are that
serious,
they hear.
very seriously, they are revealing that they hold you in contempt. And this is very important. When you tolerate contempt, you reward the behavior, it grows. Because
Mm,
what happens when you tolerate contempt is the person loses respect for you because you tolerated it.
mm,
So they have more contempt for you. So it's very important when
mm,
someone demonstrates contempt.
mhm.
And you're not going to be able to make somebody write that sentence or do that. So that's like, forget about it. I mean, that's
Just a
like
thought.
it's a funny
Just a
story
thought.
that's not going to help you with an adult. Um,
But the idea of explaining to them or saying in your own words the concept of profanity versus humanity versus etiquette versus politeness versus respect, that's what you're getting at because they're clearly not showing you those things, respect or anything else, when they use
You
that
can
kind of
memorize
language
that
around you.
statement and say it in a conversation.
Oh, I could say it easily.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, but somebody could take your sentence and memorize it and use
Yeah,
it in an adult
yeah,
conversation,
yeah, yeah.
or just, yeah. I mean, I'm assuming you made it up, Dennis, but
It
let's
is, but
talk.
and that's really what it is. It's the effort of a feeble mind who cannot think of anything else to call you something like that, to call you one of
Well,
those names. Now, I want to point out also, in addition to this overt, Robin, well, you talk about it first. You talked about overt and covert. We're talking about overt. They say it. Da, 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 da. What do you mean by covert?
covert is kind of what we were talking about before, where it's a very, you can't tell that it's name
It's
calling.
it's not obvious. Okay. I want
Like,
to
oh,
introduce,
you're a good doobie.
yeah. Oh,
It's a backhanded compliment. Well,
yeah.
are you getting a prize to be here on time? Because I notice you are never late. Something like that
Mhm.
is a little more covert.
Yeah.
So it's an effort to paint you in a frame, to get others to perceive you in a certain way.
And it's
You
often done around other people too, so that it expresses that.
Right.
You have heard us talk before on the show, and certainly in the book. You've heard us talk before about the way in which these things are said. So facial expression, tone, speed, volume, all of that stuff. You've heard us talk about that many times. That applies here too. Now it certainly applies when someone calls you an outright rah, 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 yeah, and you get all of that. But there's a covert way without even saying or making it sound like it's name calling. It can make the other person feel, oh, what, uncomfortable or hurt or challenged or questioned or whatever. What am I? So that kind of covert name calling is when people say things like to you, uh, okay, I'll repeat it very slowly. What are they saying? They're not saying because you're dumb, because you're stupid. They're just saying, okay, I'll repeat it very slowly. Okay. Or they'll say something like, well, it might be a little bit more over. It's like, oh, you're such a, so that's a little bit different, but it's not often said with anger. It's said, you're such a, or, oh, it's just like you to be able to say, it's just like you that. So they're calling you something that's implied in a way. They don't always say it overtly. How many times have I said to you, how many times have I said this? Now that can be said very gently, like even with, how many times have I said this? You can even say it with a smile, but you know darn well that you, in essence, are being called a name. You, in essence, are being told that you are something. You're dumb, you're stupid, you can't learn, or whatever it is, you're not listening, or whatever it is. That's
Yeah.
another covert way of name calling. So I don't want to overlook that. This is not just one word or two words that they call you you're an a-hole or whatever the other words are that you all know those words. Not just that. It's oftentimes the words that surround it. And you may not even hear one of those words. You may get it in a tone. You may get it in a facial expression.
Yes.
That's name calling.
Yes.
Okay.
So
So,
yes.
so we're
So
at a point. So what do you do about these things? What can you do about these things? What should you do about these things? When you have name calling, what's the approach? What should you take? Well, like everything else that we've said, it starts with mindset. You have to be aware awareness, of course, we've said that many times. You got to be aware that you may get it, that you're probably going to get it in some situations, in some settings. And your mindset has to be aware of what it is, what it means. And you've heard these two words before. When you hear it, do not respond to it. I mean, don't react to it. See, I already got it wrong. Don't react. Oh, I'm not. Well, how do you call me that? What do you say? Don't react. Let it sink in, think a little bit,
when
and
he
then
says
respond
react,
later.
he's talking about if they see an emotional response from you, and
Yep.
it could be nonverbal.
Yep.
You could have your verbal under control, but you show the nonverbal. It gives them power. A
They
lot
get
of
it.
times, name calling, let's just call it name calling or labeling or framing. is done in the beginning as a test to see where your buttons are.
Yeah, right.
And
What will
they
you
tuck it away
tolerate?
for later when they need it. And so
Exactly.
they can blindside you with it
Yep.
later, when you least suspect it.
Yep.
Manipulators often will get you to feel closeness and like you can completely trust them. And they may even overtly ask you, you know, did you ever have your feelings hurt as a kid? Or what were you like growing up? And then just have you tell stories about, well,
Mhm.
one thing that I always, I was never comfortable eating in front of anybody because I always was told that I chewed like a cow or I
They're
ate too,
investigating.
or I was pudgy. And oh, that I'm so sorry that happened.
Yeah. They
Next thing
tuck
you
that
know,
away. Yep.
when they're not getting their way, they're like, "Hey, fatty
Mhm.
Patty, you wanna slow
Yep.
down there?
Yep.
Leave some for
Yep.
the rest of us?"
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. It'll come back. They investigate, they test all the time. So it
yeah,
may sound, non-committal or fine, just in conversation, and you may want to say it because it's a fun part of the conversation. When you are dealing with a manipulator, you have to be careful all the time. We're sorry to tell you that, folks,
why
but
we tell you to
when you
get
know
away.
your manipulator is there, you need to be on your alert. They're looking and listening and testing for you all the time.
All the time, all the time. So, when they are showing you contempt, though, contempt, like, it's flat out, you can see what contempt is. I mean, you can hear it in their voice.
Yeah.
You must not tolerate it. You must not sit
Mhm.
there and take it. And if your
Mhm.
lips starting to quiver and you're starting to tear up and all that, that's not good because that's just what they want.
Mhm.
Want that
Mhm.
so badly. So you've really got to say something short and succinct and get
Mhm.
away.
And like
And
everything else we've suggested, almost everything else that we've said as a technique to deal with a specific tactic, your responses should be short and to the point, not long explanations that they get too much information from that. Make it short and to the point. Now, this goes to one of the exercises we've given some of you, and it'll be in our workshops, and it's certainly in the book, is the exercise about what will you tolerate. And this is a very important exercise. If you get the book, look for that one because it gives you a sense of what you will tolerate and what you do when you get to the point when name calling comes into the conversation. What should you do? What can you do at that immediate moment? Because even if you're aware it's coming, certainly if you don't know it's coming, what can you do?
I would just say in a professional setting, you should be very logos. And if you
Hmm.
don't know what that means, you need to go back and listen to our other episodes. But
Yeah.
in logos, I would say, Bob, I don't appreciate your assessment of me as a good doobie. I make a lot of mistakes.
Hmm.
So you practice it
Hmm.
and you say it succinctly because
Hmm.
you know that this is going to come up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I
And
would
then
do at work. At home, I would say, if you're going to resort to name calling, this conversation is over and leave.
done. Period. Right.
Hang up or leave. That's
Yep.
it.
And if it continues, you get a second one after. Oh, now you're being such a. That's the time you get a second
That's
one after you made that. Bye
that's
bye.
what will happen.
And you will get that. That's part
Oh,
of the
you're gonna run
backlash.
away. You're gonna run. Oh, yeah, just like you. Yep, scaredy
Mhm.
cat, chicken,
Mhm.
coward, run away. More
Yep.
names. Yeah,
Do it anyway.
do it
Do it
anyway.
anyway. Yep.
Do
And
it anyway.
stop the interaction. If you can't get away physically, run away. Can't get out of the room, can't get out of the car, whatever it is, stop talking.
Start singing 99 bottles of beer on the wall in your head. That's what my daughter did when she didn't want to
Did
listen.
she really? Oh,
It's very
gee.
effective for her.
Oh, boy.
Start at 99 and work your way down.
Because she didn't
Dennis,
want to hear anymore. She didn't
she
want to
didn't
hear from
want
you.
to listen to whatever I was saying.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not going to sing the song because you'll never get it out of your head. Dennis, we have about a minute left.
All right. Wrap it up, Robin. Anything
Me.
else we want to tell folks?
The most important thing is understand the difference between the covert and the overt, and that it's not just a direct label. So you need to be paying attention. You need to write it down, especially if it's a professional person that you need to be aware of that's not an ally, and know how you're going to respond
Mhm.
given the context. We have updated our website, outwitinrealtime.com. Please go there. Subscribe to us. We won't spam you. We don't even know how to spam people. I couldn't even begin to know how to do
I
that.
don't know either.
We're only going to send you relevant communication, but we have updated all of our workshops for 2024 and 25. And we do
Great.
have one right around the corner. So please go to the
Yeah.
website and check that out. And
great.
other than that, I mean, we're halfway through April. It's time
Yeah.
for the crocuses and the tulips.
Yeah, it's great. You'll love these workshops, folks. We really hope you get there. We get a chance to meet you in person, and some of them are going to be virtual, but there's a lot going on. So look at the website and see what it's all about, as Robin said. And I'll just give you one last thing to remember before we sign off, and that is, remember, profanity is the effort of a feeble mind to express itself forcibly.
You heard it.
So until next time,
Pearls of wisdom, no charge.
she's Robin Golinski. I'm Dr. Dennis Becker. Thanks for being with us. Bye for now.